Welcome to Perfect-ish, where it's not about having perfect time management, but about perfecting your relationship with time. I'm your host, Callie Brigham, and every week we'll talk all things time and how to maximize it without burnout or guilt. Whether we're chatting with an expert or I'm sharing my 20 years of time management experience, you'll learn simple strategies to make every moment count. Here, it's all about getting close to perfect-ish. So let's synchronize our watches and dive in. Hi, friend. I am going on a little journey, a little discovery journey, a little time discovery journey, and I would like to invite you along with me. I was having a conversation with one of my dearest friends, Crystal, the other day, and we were comparing and contrasting our lives, if you will. She has 2 boys in elementary school. I have 2 teenagers in high school. My oldest, Brayden, is now driving. And I tell you, there's nothing like your 2 parts of your heart leaving you at the same time in the same car when they drive off to go to school every morning. So he is taking my 14-year-old daughter. And not only do they drive to school and home from school across 2 bridges, may I say, where I live, but also after some of their sports that they have, some of the kids are going out to eat. So they're going to do that. They're making social plans. They've got a lot going on in their lives. And in many ways, it's requiring less time from me. It's definitely requiring more mental and emotional capacity, mentoring them, helping them navigate some of the challenges that they have, whether it is the heavy load academically, whether it is just life as a teenager, whether it is things going on in our world right now. So I've got that end of the spectrum. And then she's got things like making sure that they make their, she's got snacks for them and that their clothes are laid out the night before and that whatever their teacher sends home with them, that they know how to do that. And physically, 2 boys with a ton of energy running around and falling down and scraping themselves and all the things that come from it. So we were having this conversation about how different our lives are in this season and what that looks like as far as our schedules go. And we're aligned in so many ways in our lives, yet we have this difference. And it was through that conversation of really honoring each other and also, I'm a few steps ahead of her, about 10 years ahead of her in some areas, that I started to deep dive a little bit in a thought that I've been having. And then, once you start having a thought, then everything that you hear and see starts to align with that thought. And here's what it is. There is a difference between time management and time stewardship. And the reason I say I'm going to take you along on this journey is I feel like I have leaned towards the time management. Obviously, that's what I say that I do. That's what this podcast is about. There's nothing wrong with it. But what if it could be even better, if that's the word? What if it could be more important? What if it could be more sacred? What if it could make more sense to women like me, women like you? So that's kind of where I have been journeying, I guess you could say. It's kind of like when I had a client a while back say that she hated planning on Sunday nights and we moved things to Friday. So I'm certainly not here as the expert saying that everything that I do and say is in concrete. As a matter of fact, most of it is quite fluid. So therefore, that's what I want to explore with you today and with myself today. And I've been doing some studying and doing some research on it. And my conclusion is, are we called to manage time or are we called to steward it? And I'm leaning towards the latter. The verse in Ecclesiastes 3:1 says, "To everything there is a season and a time to every purpose under heaven." So it's kind of what Crystal and I were talking about. There's birth and there's death and there's planting and there's harvest and there's weeping and there's laughing. And it just reminds us that life moves in rhythms and in seasons. And it's not just about endless efficiency. Oh, and it pains me to say that because I really, really, really love and really value maybe too much efficiency. I'm kind of wired for the task. Oh, so this is gonna be something for me, and maybe it is for you too. When I think about the difference between the two, so that's what I'm trying to do. And it's not just semantics. It's not just saying a different word for the same thing. But time management, I believe, treats time more like a resource and a resource that we control, that we optimize, that we maximize. And hey, I'm not mad at that. I love optimization and control and maximization. So, ooh, okay. But the problem with just looking at time management in that respect is that it leads to some symptoms like guilt. That might sound like I didn't do enough today. It might lead to scarcity. There's never enough time. And I've addressed that, right? We don't need more time. God forbid we had more time. We would just fill it with more things that we have to do. And then we'd still feel guilty about it. And it also leads to a symptom of productivity obsession where we elevate efficiency over maybe more meaningful things. So that I'm describing myself. If anyone else is feeling their toes stepped on, me too. And right now in our world, there are apps for everything that track every second. There are, of course, the color coded calendars that start to boss us around. And I think really what we want to avoid is that we end up serving time instead of time serving us. Because if it is managing time that we're after, and if it worked, then why would so many of us feel behind or even burned out? So we described what time management really is, and it really comes from a function of even like a factory, right? Of how well run can something go. But time stewardship, on the other hand, is more like caring for something that's been entrusted to us. And in my world, it's been entrusted to us from God, from the Lord. And when it is entrusted to us, we don't own it. Time is not owned by us, we're entrusted with it. So, what shifts in me is from managing to stewarding, from controlling to aligning. And I almost think of myself, and I'm doing a hand motion, aligning myself under the providence of God, from maximizing it. Man, I love to maximize, but from maximizing it more to honoring it. So I hope that you're starting to see the little nuances that I think could really make a difference, and hopefully they give you peace. That's the whole idea. It's it's to change us and to change us towards peace and perspective. So another scripture that I think of is Psalm 90:12. And in that David sings, "Teach us to number our days that we might gain a heart of wisdom." And it's a prayer, and it's really a prayer from Moses, and it's asking God to help us see the brevity of life and to live wisely. So again, it's not about the optimization of every minute, it's about living with that perspective that I just talked about. And I think a lot of us can think of Matthew 25:21, and that reads, "His master said to him, 'Well done, good and faithful servant.'" We've all heard that, right? "You've been faithful over a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Enter into the joy of your master." And this is from the parable of the talents. And a master entrusts his servants with resources, talents in quotes, before, and it could be money, before leaving on a journey. Two of them invest faithfully. Now, a little bit differently, but they still invest faithfully. And they're rewarded by the master. And one hides his out of fear. And the master doesn't like that. And he takes it away. So the point isn't the profit of it, it's the faithfulness in which it's entrusted. And also, they were all given different amounts. So it's not about equality in this either. It's about our response in it. And so time's the same way, because I think about the equality. I have more time, in a manner of speaking, than my friend Crystal does, because of the age of my kids and the ability that they have to be driving and to be independent. So it's not about that. And it's also not about squeezing everything dry, which again is hard for me, but it's about stewarding it well. So, what if our time wasn't meant to be maximized, but really, it could be multiplied, but it's multiplied through our faithfulness in it. Yeah, this is hard. This is why this does not just happen overnight. There are some internal shifts that I'm working on personally that I want to share with you. And the first is that the guilt that really accompanies traditional time management, that shame that comes when we waste time or we don't stick to our perfect, not just ish, but perfect schedule, that is going to transform. We want to transform that into that peace. Because when we steward time, things like this happen. Rest isn't time that's lost. I mean, after all, Jesus took time to rest. The Sabbath is one of the most important commandments. So rest isn't time lost or squandered or wasted. It's time invested so that we can serve well tomorrow. And really, I remember when one of our podcast guests spoke about the Sabbath, it wasn't just to rest, to recover so we can do more. It's literally just to rest in Him. That's really what it is. And really, if we want to add to that, we could think not just rest, we could think play. And playtime isn't frivolous time, it's stewarding joy, it's stewarding creativity. And you think about that with the little kids. Also, reflection time. That's not unprofitable or unproductive. That's gaining wisdom, especially when we're reflecting based on what we're wanting to hear from God. So, of all of those things, the most significant is really that presence or being present is just as valuable as productivity. And in my mind, I see productivity and then the greater than sign, and then present or rest or all the other things. And I'm working on it. I am working on it because what I find is if I'm not careful, the present moment is usually can be sacrificed because I'm wanting to be efficient in the future. So, taking deep breaths because stewardship is recognizing that we inhabit each moment as an act of faithfulness to the gift that we've been given. Isn't that neat to think of time as a gift? It really is. All right. So, how are we going to do this? What is this going to look like? What are the shifts going to look like? How's this going to help our relationships? How's this going to help our boundaries? How's this going to change our questions instead of saying what's the most efficient use of my time? And I don't think that's a bad question, but a better question would be what would faithful stewardship look like in this situation? Yeah, I know. I know. It's good stuff. And before I give you just a couple practical ideas and then send you on your way, I know there are some pushbacks to it. I know there are some obstacles. I'm very aware of those. And just a couple of those that come to my mind are won't I get less done? Right? If I'm just like floating in this pool of stewardship. But just like many things, the opposite is true that stewardship often produces better quality work and less burnout. Maybe you're saying, but other people won't understand. If I make this shift, it's not going to make sense to them. And some people will. They will question maybe some new boundaries that you're setting up. But you know what? You're modeling something healthier. And frankly, does it really matter what others think? Or does it matter what's serving you best and really how you're honoring the Lord in my situation, in my case, and what my beliefs are? And so, really, who are we serving? Right? Man or God? And then you might even think, well, I don't even know what I'm stewarding towards. So maybe you're thinking, okay, that's still a little woo woo to me. That still doesn't really nail it down. So maybe in this case, if you're not really sure what you're stewarding toward, you could start with noticing what drains you and what fills you. And the clarity is just going to come as you practice this. So here's a few practical ideas for you. I don't want you to do all of them. I want you to do one of them. that stands out to you? And I've heard of something called a values compass. So you kind of think of that compass and the direction, right? So think of the image of a compass and then the arrow pointing north, right? True north. And then you just are going to follow that no matter where you turn, right or left, it's going to guide you. So your values compass might be 3 to 5 values, and you're just going to decide every yes or no through those. And if you don't even know what to put on a values compass, you could Google it, you could chat GPT it. What are some of the values and see again what feels draining, what feels filling in your values. So that could be one thing that you do. And maybe you even have a image of it, an image of a compass that just reminds you for your decisions when you're putting it down on your calendar, when you're saying yes, when you're saying no. Another practical idea could be what I like to call sacred scheduling. So it's putting the big rocks in first. And I know this is really basic and really practical, but this is just a way of turning your eyes outward and upward. Family, health, Sabbath, if you want to give that a go. And those are the non negotiables. So putting the first things first, and then if there's room, the other. So it's cradling versus juggling, like I've talked about. The third thing is the seasonal rhythms. Name your current season, name it out loud, not just fall, winter, whatever. But right now, in the time of this recording, both of my kids are playing high school ball. And that is at least 2 to 3 nights a week. And so nights for us, the rhythm for that is busy. That affects our meals, that affects our mornings, that affects my work day, that affects so many things. That affects their school priorities, it affects all of it. Well, guess what? Once mid-October passes, they're not playing high school sports anymore. Braden will still just play travel sports. Well, things are going to change. Maddie might do mock trial or drama at school. So, naming your current season, and I know that I'm naming what my kids have going on, but that's a big part of my schedule. And so, living according to that instead of forcing this max capacity all year long, like it has to be even, Steven. And it doesn't. It's going to be different in the summer. It's going to be different when your kids are different ages. And then number 4 would be presence practices. And this is just a simple way to polish the present. We've talked about that, or steward the moment, just that moment. So it could be a tech free dinner. It could be how you end your day with gratitude or reflection. It could be something that just grounds you in that moment. And then number 5 would be to reframe that unproductive time. And you could now call it your stewardship time. It could be your stewardship time of joy. It could be your stewardship time of laughter. It could be your stewardship time of relationships. It could be a stewardship time of whatever you want it to be. But we're renaming that, renaming it and reframing it. So that's my challenge for you as I strive to be better in the areas of my life. And I know you want to too. So we're going to pick one area of your week. We're going to steward it instead of managing it. And again, if you're not sure, just keep asking yourself on repeat. Am I managing this time or stewarding it? Am I controlling this time, like we talked about? Or am I honoring this time? What are my feelings about it? What are my emotions about it? And just to bring us back to scripture, for my sake too, 1 Corinthians 4:2 says, "Moreover, it is required of stewards that they be found faithful." And Paul, in this verse, he's just reminding the church that leaders, like stewards, okay, are not owners, but we're caretakers. And the measure of our success in this isn't the control that we have, it's just being faithful to it. So, as you're asking yourself, am I managing time or stewarding time? Is this managing time or is it stewarding time? You might find in some areas it's very obvious, in some areas you're not. So, you could really also frame this in time management asks, how can I do more? And time stewardship asks, how can I honor what matters most? All right. So, I think this is going to take a little practice for me, for you, but I think it's of value and I think it's worth it. So let's just step into the idea of removing time management from our dialogue, from our process, and going into time stewardship. Let's give it a go. And I'd love to hear from you and see what you think and how you're doing. All right. Till next time, let's steward our time well. God bless. Thanks for tuning in to the Perfect-ish Time Management Podcast. Let's keep the fun going. Follow me on social and join our Facebook community. And if you're ready for some one-on-one time management coaching to reach the top of your game without burnout or guilt, I'd love to chat. Book a free interest call using the link in the show notes or send me a DM. And if you enjoyed today's episode, please leave a 5-star review and share it with a friend who's ready to master their time too. Remember, we're in this together, making real progress towards becoming perfect-ish.